I came to this spot here and the crash literally took up this whole area.
We do not know whose helicopter this was. Air 4 was up this morning. At this point, we're not hearing anything in terms of anyone surviving this or any injuries at all with respect to this helicopter crash.
It took me probably 6 months to drive on this road. I just couldn't do it. I just could not drive on this section. Even though it's the entrance to work, I always went around. I just couldn't drive past it. Even now, I don't like coming over here. It's just hard. I got as close as I felt was safe in those first 30 seconds to get the footage. When I think back on it, I didn't even have to think about doing that. It was just instinct. And as a journalist, it's my responsibility to cover this and to make sure that our community knows exactly what happened.
Not only are you mourning, as we were with this crash, you're mourning the loss of a friend, you're doing it in a very public and open way. It's incredibly difficult. When you're covering some other story, it's not that you don't care about those people, because you do, but you don't know them. And that's easier to compartmentalize and just sort of put on your blinders and talk about.
The longer you're in this business, the more you see. And so every time you show up to an event that is really hard to cover, you're kind of a little better at dealing with it. And so for the most part, I feel like that's something I've been very good at as a journalist. I've been very good at finding good, safe ways for me to cope with everything that I see. But there are stories that are just really hard to get over.
You have to build a little wall inside your brain. You can't let the emotions completely take over. You need to be a human being, but you cannot let the human emotion of the situation completely overtake you, or you can't do your job. It happens in fits and spurts. There are moments where you're talking and the situation just all of a sudden just kind of like pow, sinks in. But just for, and so emotion will creep in and your voice will tremble and sometimes you can't continue. And so we just have a system. You just pick it up and you keep that conversation going with the viewer.
Oh, what a day, you guys, what a day. Those of us who got a chance to work with and know Bill Strothman are very lucky indeed.
It was probably somewhere around, 2 or 3 hours after the actual accident occurred that we were finally able to confirm and put that out on air. And that was definitely a point when no amount of being a journalist and preparing for working in a tragic scene worked.
As we have reached the point here where we can talk about the two people that we have lost.
A tough day already, and this is even tougher to be able to see this picture and talk about Bill Strothman.
Bill is a huge loss. He was a very dear friend. When I first started, he was definitely one of those people who was a mentor. He was somebody that you could always rely on for doing an excellent job as a journalist, but also just being an excellent human being. And I think that's something that, as you work in this business, you constantly have to remind yourself that those two are the same thing. You can be a good journalist and a good human being at the same time. You really can have that humanity in every story that you work on. And so I think for me, the biggest thing is I try not to focus on what I lost, but what I gained. And what I gained from both Bill and Gary is from that point forward. That was topmost in every story that I ever do from this point forward, is bringing that humanity to that story.